Hey everyone, welcome to today's workshop. We'll be developing colour film at home today and using the C41 process. So the key difference between black and white developing, which I'm sure a lot of you have done in the dark room, with colour film is that we have to keep the colour film at a regulated temperature using a temperature controlled bath throughout the developing process. So I'll show you how to do that using some of the equipment that I use, and we can get looking at the equipment and then get right down to developing the chemicals so that they're all mixed and then actually developing the film as well. Okay, so first and foremost we're going to need some safety equipment, so that'll be rubber gloves and some safety glasses so we don't get any splashes or chemicals on us. And also we would need either a plastic drop sheet or a bin liner just to cover the work surface that we'll be working on, just to contain any chemicals on there. We're also going to need, for developing, we're going to need two funnels to pour back and forth our chemicals into the bottles and into the beakers and into the developing tank as well. We're going to need a plastic spoon, so something cheap and nasty or something that you're not going to be eating off, so metal would be fine as well. We're going to need a plastic beaker, so this one's 1 litre and will maintain all of the chemicals, and it's got a fairly wide mouth and something to pour as well on the end. We're going to need a very accurate thermometer. This is my kind of backup thermometer, which I'll use just before developing. We're going to need 2 amber glass bottles. These are 1 litre, which will cover the amount needed for developing the 4x5 sheet film. You need to clearly label them 1 developer, 1 fixer. That's what's great about this process as well, is that it's just 2 steps. So it's just a develop and then a bleach and fix in one. You're also going to need another glass bottle. As long as it's 1 litre, it doesn't matter, just keep it clean. We're just going to put water in at the same temperature. And we're going to need the C41 colour film developer powder kit. So this was imported from LA, and it was around $80 for 2 packets of these, and each packet will develop around 32 sheets of colour film, which is quite a lot. And when you factor in the price of sending that into a lab versus doing it yourself, then it becomes a lot more cost effective. Also, you'll need your tank, your developing tank. So you've got your lid, you've got your light tight seal there where you'll pour the chemicals into. You've got the stirring stick, which I personally don't use. You've also got the spool holders, so if you're developing 35mm or 120 film, you can do 2 rolls on this one for this tank. But because we're going to be developing 4x5 sheet film, we don't need these spool holders here. But we do need this. So this just goes and pops right back into there. Okay, so we're just going to get in nice and close for this shot, for this demonstration. So this is called the taco method, and what we'll be using is the colour sheet film, and obviously this will be done in complete darkness. So what we have to realise is that the top right or the bottom left will have a notch on it. So if that notch is on the bottom left, for example, we'll be curling it inwards, so the emulsion side will be facing up. We'll be curling this inwards, and we'll be getting a hair bubble, just something cheap, nothing too tight. I find the tighter that these hair bubbles are, the more chances that you'll crease the film. And why we put the emulsion side so it's going inwards is if we're putting more than one colour film negative into the tank, then it won't scratch the other negative surface. So we're just going to pop that straight over there, and then we're just going to get our film tank and we're just going to pop it straight into the side. into there. So you can see there. And we can get around 3 pieces of film into here, so you can develop 3 at a time. But for today's purposes, we're just going to be developing the 1. So remember, this is in complete darkness, so the key thing to remember is the notches. And then we're just going to put this lid straight onto the top, screw until it clicks, and then that's now light tight. So we can, I prefer just to be on the side of caution, just to pop this lid on as well. And then that's ready to develop in the tank. Okay, so for the last few pieces of equipment that we're going to be using is some sort of timer. So I use my cell phone. I use an app called Devit, and you can develop C41 and black and white film using the app. You can get your timings exactly right. It'll vibrate for you. It'll set your alarm as well. So I find that super handy. If you could make sure that your phone's charged as well. You don't want it dying on you in the last few minutes. And then for the last 2 pieces of equipment that we're going to need is the sous vide, which creates a temperature controlled bath. It's primarily used by chefs to cook food with and maintain a temperature for the food, but what we're going to be doing is heating the water up to the temperature that we need to for the colour developing, which will then in turn heat the chemicals up, and then we'll use that to maintain the temperature throughout the developing process. And the last piece of equipment that we're going to need is this container, or any large container. We want to make sure that the minimum and maximum levels that the water can be in between there. So we'll be filling this container with water, and all we need to do is just clamp it to the side. And then we'll fill this container with water at around 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So we can use the thermometer and run that under the tap if you want to, under the faucet, and then make sure that you're near a plug outlet as well, so that we can start developing. So I'm going to show you how to next mix the developing chemicals and the fixer as well, before we can actually move on to developing the film. Okay, so for this next part, we're going to be mixing the chemicals. So we start with the developer. So we just take our powder kit, the C41 powder kit, and we'll just open that. So there'll be 3 packets in here, and we're just going to focus on the first packet first. It's the colour developer, and it's marked in red clearly. So what I've got here is 1 litre of water, and it's at 100 degrees Fahrenheit at the moment. And I'm just going to pour 700 millilitres into this beaker here. Okay, so that's 700 millilitres. So now what we can do is we can just open this packet of developer. And as we're pouring this developer in, we want to just circulate the liquid. So just circulate it in that, and we're just gradually adding it in, just so it all mixes in nicely. So we're just just going to give that a really good stir now. Get all the way to the bottom. It's not the nicest of colours, but it doesn't smell of anything, fortunately. So once you're satisfied that you've mixed all of the liquid with the powder together, we can then just top it up. So we've got the remaining water, which was at 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're just going to top it up to 1000 ml, just to bring it up to 1 litre. Just give that another stir. We won't need the spoon again, so just put that in your sink or in the bin if it's just a plastic disposable. And then we're just going to take the lid off of your developer. The amber bottle that you'll be putting the developer in. And then you get your funnel. Be careful when you're doing this because obviously the funnel, the stem, is a little bit longer, so you'll have to be really slow towards the end. And you're just going to carefully pour the developer into the glass bottle. You want to fill it right to the top, just so there's no other air in the bottle. You just want all of the liquid just filling all the way to the top. Okay, so now that's full, we can then just clean this beaker, and then we'll move on to the bleach and fix part A and part B, and we'll mix those developing chemicals. Okay, so there's 2 steps for the bleach and fix bath that we're going to be mixing the chemicals for. It's bleach and fix, but it is going to go into the same bottle. Remember, this bottle's marked with an F on the top, so we know that it's the fixer. So we can just, again, I've pre-prepared this, it's at 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're just going to top it up to 700 millilitres again. We'll just keep that for later because we'll need it. And then just going to open part A, which is number 2, and it's marked in blue. So there's 2 parts to this. So there's part A and there's part B. Just carefully open this. And again, we're just going to circulate a liquid. And we're just going to gradually pour this part A into there. So just give that a really good stir again. so we've got this mixture here, but we've also got a part B to go. So what we're going to do now, and it's all in the instructions that comes with the chemicals as well, which I find super helpful if you're wanting to do different developing techniques. So we're just going to open this part B. And if you can, you could possibly do this by a window as well, because this part can smell pretty bad. It's going to create an endothermic reaction when I add this part B to it. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. It brings you back to the childhood days in science class. So we're just going to do exactly the same thing. We're just going to circulate this liquid, and we're just going to pour the whole of part B in there. Super red, kind of maroony colour. You can hear it bubbling away now. So yeah, not the nicest smell, but just make sure all this is mixed together. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to pop this into the sink. Your hands a quick wash. And what we're going to do now, which will last for 5 minutes, is we're just going to continuously pour back and forth this mixture from the beaker into the bottle that we'll be using. So we're just going to pour that into there. And then we're just going to do exactly the same in reverse. It's got a super dark browny colour now. So we're just going to continuously do that for 5 minutes, and then once we get to 5 minutes we'll then top up the liquid. Okay, so I've been mixing back and forth now the chemicals between the beaker and this bottle, and they're all mixed thoroughly now. I've topped the water up right to the brim, and then sealed it by just putting the lid on, and now they're all ready to develop the film. So we'll get the container out, fill that, and get it into a temperature controlled environment for the chemicals to be at the correct temperature for developing. Okay, so now we're at the developing stage, and I've filled the container with water. It's around 3/4 full. We want to make sure that we've got all of the equipment now ready for developing the film. So I filled it with warm water, but we'll just get the sous vide and we'll plug it in. Also make sure that you're doing this section by the sink as well. So I've just plugged this in, and what we want is this to be at 102 Fahrenheit. So you just select what temperature that you want this to be at. And you can just screw that in to the side. And the water's currently reading at 107 Fahrenheit. So I'll just add some more water to this to cool it down. And I'll also add the developer. And then the fixer as well. And then we'll just leave that to warm up now until it's at 102 degrees Fahrenheit. So now I have the bath at the right temperature, at 102 degrees Fahrenheit, and the chemicals are also at that temperature. It's time to start developing. So with this Patterson tank, because it's not built for sheet film as such, you'll see on the bottom of it, it says how many millilitres you need for different film types. And I found that if you went by the instruction of 500ml for the 120 film, that wouldn't be enough. You'd lose about 1/5 of developing on the negative. So we don't want that. So what I found that works best is to use 800 millilitres of the chemicals, so the developer and the fixer, and that's important so that all of the negative gets covered during the agitation process and the developing process. Also, what we'll have now as well, we've got the cell phone app ready, or your timer, and what I've got here for the developing time, it's 3 minutes and 30 seconds, and then every 30 seconds we'll be agitating, and then we won't be having a stop bath, but we will have a fixed bath, which is for 8 minutes, and that's also for agitating every 30 seconds. And what we'll use as well, we'll use a 1 litre bottle, and we'll just take water out of this bath at 102 degrees just to give a pre-soak for the film. So it gets rid of the anti-halation layer and also just gets the film ready for a good temperature equal to the developer and the fixer solution. So we're just going to take our beaker here, and then we're just going to pour 800 millilitres of the developer solution. Just into the beaker. It's important to maintain that temperature, so we're just going to pop that back in there just before we finalise getting everything else ready. I found sometimes it's really helpful to just get some aluminium foil and just cover that beaker just so it maintains the temperature and doesn't lose anything in there. Okay, so now we're almost ready to do the developing. We just need to do one last check of the developing temperature of the water bath and make sure that it matches the sous vide temperature controller. And we need that to be 102 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's right in the water. And then we're just going to check the developer chemical as well. And with the developer, it has to be 102 degrees Fahrenheit. It can't be below or above. Whereas with the fixer, it can be anything between 75 and 105 degrees Fahrenheit. So we just need to make sure that that is exactly right, which it is. So we've got everything ready now. We've got our tank here. It's got the lid on at the moment. We can begin by just pouring the water for the pre-soak, which will just be for 1 minute. So we're just going to pour all of that liquid in to the tank. Just put the lid on, make sure it's tightly squeezed on there. We'll just agitate it. So all we're doing is just flipping the tank upside down, inverting it. We'll just do that for 10 seconds, and then we can leave it for the remaining 50 seconds. And we'll do an agitation just at the end before we pour it out. So we just make sure that we've also got the app ready to go for developing. What we want to do now is we just want to take the lid off, and we're just going to pour it away. There will be a colour to it, it'll be a greeny colour, and it's just the anti-halation layer, so that's absolutely fine. Make sure all of that layer is out. Just going to start the clock on the developer. We need to start moving a bit faster now, so we're just going to take the lid off here. We're just going to pour all of this solution into the tank and put the lid on. Make sure the lid's tight, and we're going to be doing this for 3 minutes 30 seconds. So we're just going to, for the first 10 seconds, turning this upside down 4 times, which is the inversion cycle, and then we're just going to leave this in the water bath for 30 seconds. So this will maintain the temperature of the bath, of the chemicals. So every 30 seconds we'll be turning it, doing 4 inversions. It's coming up to 1 minute now, so I'll do 4 inversion cycles. 2, 3 and 4, and we're just going to put it back into the bath. We can also get this ready to put back into the bottle in between these cycles, just so there's no panic towards the end. Coming up to 30 seconds now, so we're just going to give another 4 inversion cycles. I've just got my funnel ready in the sink there, just so I can pour the developer straight out. Do another 30, it's been another 30 seconds, so another 4 inversion cycles. Making sure that we're keeping the tank in the water bath between each cycle, just to maintain that temperature of the chemical at 102 degrees Fahrenheit. So we can also just fill this up in between the cycles, which is the fixer, straight into the beaker, and we're just going to be using 800 millilitres of this. And another cycle. Cycle again. Okay, so we're coming up to the last 10 seconds now. So what we want to do is we'll just give it 2 more inversion cycles. I'm just going to take the lid off. And we're just going to pour this solution back into the developer bottle as fast as you can. We'll move this out of the way. We're just going to then pour the fixer straight into here, into the tank, as fast as you can again. Put the lid on. We're just going to do 4 inversion cycles. So we're going to be doing this for 8 minutes now. We're going to leave it for 30 seconds again. You can just leave it in the bath. It doesn't have to be exactly, as I said before, 102 degrees Fahrenheit, as long as it's in the range of 75 to 105, that's fine. But I like to keep it in the water bath at a regulated temperature. So another 4 cycles. And it's important for every 30 seconds to be just lifting the lid slightly and letting the air come out. Just give the bottom a tap as well to get rid of any air bubbles. And again, just do 4 inversion cycles at 180 degrees. Lift the lid slightly. You might hear like a slight hiss of the air coming out, and then just a little tap on the bottom just to get any air bubbles out, and then back in. So we'll repeat this process for 8 minutes. Okay, so we're coming up to the 7-minute mark now. So we've got 1 minute left. So we're just on the last 2 inversion cycles. What we want to do is we can just have our beaker prepared in the sink and our other clean funnel. Just put that in there. The last inversion cycle now. When we get to around 5 seconds before the end, we can just start pouring it out into the beaker. So we can take this lid off, put this in the sink because it'll have chemicals on there, and then we can just pour this liquid and the fixer straight into the beaker as fast as we can. We can just move this off to one side, so we can just put that onto the side of your sink or wherever. And we just want to get a bottle, clean bottle, and because we know this water is at 102 degrees Fahrenheit, we just fill this bottle right to the top. We're just going to fill the Patterson tank all the way to the top. We're just going to empty that fully, which will wash away any chemicals. We're also saving water in this way as well, rather than running the tap constantly. So again, to the top. It's a matter of just filling and emptying as much as you can, probably around 6 or 7 times is enough. Making sure each time that we empty it fully, just in case there's any chemicals in there. You never know whether there's some stuck to the bobble or hair tie. I think one of the most important things for this process is to make sure that everything's in a kind of organised environment, so you know what you're going to be doing next, so you're not so you're remaining calm and you're not stressing out. So now we've gone below the minimum line on the sous vide, so it's started to make a hissing sound. So we can just press the play button or the pause button, and then that'll just turn it off now. And hopefully the negative turns out well. Okay, so that's enough rinsing now. We can just give it one last empty. Take the rubber gloves off. Eager with anticipation. Just unscrew this, the lid. Then we're just going to take our film out. We're going to take the hair tie out. And there is your developed film negative. So yeah, that's all of the process. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or ask after the class. I hope you enjoyed the process and hope you do get to invest in the process as well. It's really invigorating and great to be involved with the process from start to finish. So yeah, hopefully I get to scan this tomorrow and I can show you during the class.